First contact and confrontation. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, where countless stars illuminated the darkness like scattered diamonds, one species had risen above all others. The Zevrak, with their iridescent obsidian skin and eyes that contained the knowledge of 1,000 generations, had dominated the galactic stage for over 50,000 years. Their empire spanned 3 spiral arms, encompassing over 600 star systems, each one bent to their exacting will. Their technological prowess was unmatched, their culture refined through millennia, and their military might unchallenged for so long that war had become merely ceremonial, a brief formality before inevitable surrender. The Zevrak Council of Seven, the oldest living members of their kind, had overseen the subjugation of 17 spacefaring species. Each conquest followed the same pattern: discovery, assessment, demonstration of power, and then submission. It was a dance they had perfected, a rhythm as natural to them as the binary pulses of the neutron stars they harvested for energy. But then, in the outer edge of the Orion Arm, on a small blue planet circling an unremarkable yellow star, something unprecedented happened. Humanity escaped its cradle. It began with a Hawking drive, named after an ancient human physicist whose theories had finally been proven correct. Dr. Amara Okafor, working from her laboratory beneath the Kenyan highlands, had discovered the method to fold space in controlled bursts, allowing ships to jump distances that would have taken conventional drives decades to traverse. The breakthrough came not from some grand government initiative, but from a private research team funded by the collective resources of 3,000 individual investors who believed in Okafor's vision. Within 5 years, humanity had established outposts on 7 exoplanets, each one selected for their Earth-like conditions. These weren't military installations or government colonies. They were scientific communities, mining operations, and in the case of Proxima Centauri, an artist colony dedicated to capturing the red-hued landscapes in various media. Humanity expanded not as a unified force, but as a chaotic, vibrant explosion of individual interests and passions. The Zevrak noticed this expansion when one of their automated scout vessels detected unusual energy signatures from the Sol system. The findings were so anomalous that they were initially dismissed as instrument error. When a second scout confirmed the readings, the Zevrak still didn't send a warship. They dispatched a cultural observation probe, the kind used to study pre-spaceflight civilizations from a distance. These readings must be misinterpreted, Sub-Commander Zex Terrell said, her slender fingers tracing the holographic display. The energy output suggests advanced capabilities, but the disorganized pattern of expansion indicates primitive social development. It's contradictory. Perhaps they've stolen technology, offered High Commander Vel Korax, the youngest member of the Council of Seven at merely 800 years old. It wouldn't be the first time a lesser species has stumbled upon artifacts they don't understand. The observation probe arrived at the edge of Sol's Kuiper Belt and began its passage scans. What it found confounded the Zevrak analysts further. Humans had an abundance of spacefaring vessels, but they were of wildly different designs. Some were clearly military, others scientific. Many appeared to be simple transport or mining vessels. There was no standardization, no central authority governing their construction or deployment. Chaotic, Vel Korax declared. They'll tear themselves apart before they become any concern to us. But as the probe gathered more data, a disturbing pattern emerged. Humans weren't fighting each other as expected. Instead, they were cooperating despite their differences, forming complex trade networks and sharing technological advancements across their various factions. Most disturbing of all, they were innovating at a rate the Zevrak analysts could barely track. We should initiate contact, Zex Terrell suggested. Assess their potential threat level directly. The Council of Seven agreed, and a diplomatic vessel was dispatched to Sol. Unlike their conquering fleets, this ship was designed to impress rather than intimidate, a sleek obsidian craft that reflected starlight like a polished mirror, large enough to house a delegation but not so massive as to appear overtly threatening. The humans detected the approaching vessel when it crossed Neptune's orbit. Unlike previous species encountered by the Zivrak, who either fled in terror or prepared for immediate war, the humans responded with a flurry of activity that baffled their observers. They sent radio greetings in multiple formats, prepared welcome parties on their orbital stations, and deployed a small fleet of unarmed vessels to escort the visitors to Earth. "They're not afraid," Zex Terrell noted with confusion. "They don't understand what we are," Velcorax replied. "That will change." The diplomatic meeting took place aboard the International Orbital Assembly, humanity's largest space station. The human representatives included scientists, politicians, military officers, and, curiously, artists and philosophers. They greeted the Zivrak with enthusiastic curiosity rather than the expected deference. Zex Terrell, leading the Zivrak delegation, performed the traditional greeting that had been used to accept the submission of countless species before. She extended her seven-fingered hand, palm up, the traditional gesture indicating the Zivrak's willingness to accept humanity into their empire as a protected, subservient race. Dr. Kenji Yamamoto, the elected speaker for humanity's delegation, smiled warmly and shook her hand instead, grasping it as an equal rather than placing his palm down in submission as protocol demanded. "On behalf of Earth and all human settlements, welcome to our system," he said, seemingly oblivious to the cultural significance of what he'd just done. "We have so many questions and hope this marks the beginning of a productive exchange between our peoples." The Zivrak delegation was stunned into momentary silence. Then Zex Terrell recovered her composure and spoke with measured calm, her translator converting her harmonic speech into human language. "You misunderstand. We are the Zivrak, rulers of this sector. We have come to formally accept your species into our protective dominion. Your technological advancements will be assessed, and appropriate roles will be assigned to your people within our empire." The human delegates exchanged glances, confusion evident on their faces. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Yamamoto replied carefully. "We're not seeking to join any empire. We're interested in peaceful exchange and mutual cooperation, but humanity governs itself." The Zivrak had encountered initial resistance before, but always from species that understood the balance of power. These humans spoke as if they were equals, as if they had a choice in the matter. It was both fascinating and deeply irritating. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order," Velcorax suggested, his patience wearing thin. With a subtle gesture, he activated a hidden device. Outside the space station, the diplomatic vessel's outer hull reconfigured, revealing weapons systems that had been concealed beneath its seamless surface. In an instant, 3 of the unarmed human escort vessels were vaporized, transformed into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The human delegation gasped in horror. But what happened next was unprecedented in the Zivrak's long history of conquest. Instead of begging for mercy or offering immediate surrender, the humans acted with swift, coordinated precision. Alarms blared throughout the station. The military personnel immediately moved to secure the Zivrak delegation, while evacuation protocols were initiated. Within moments, defense systems that had been hidden from the Zivrak scans activated around the station. A previously invisible energy field shimmered into existence, extending outward to encompass not just the station, but the remaining human vessels as well. "You've made a serious error in judgment," said Admiral Helena Chen, stepping forward from among the human delegates. Her previously diplomatic demeanor had vanished, replaced by cold fury. "You mistake our desire for peace as weakness. It is not." The Zivrak diplomatic vessel fired again, this time directing its full power at the station itself. The energy beam struck the shield and dispersed harmlessly across its surface. The humans had defensive technology far more advanced than the Zivrak's initial assessment had indicated. "Escort our guests back to their vessel," Admiral Chen ordered. "Inform them that they have 24 hours to leave our system. After that, we will consider their presence an act of war." The Zivrak were unceremoniously returned to their ship, their dignity wounded but their arrogance intact. As they departed, Velcorax turned to Zexteril. "Prepare the conquest fleet," he said. "These humans require correction." Within days, the Zevrak fleet arrived at the edge of Sol system. 50 warships, each one larger than the largest human vessel, arranged in the traditional crescent formation that had broken the resolve of so many species before. Their target was not Earth itself. Conquering species had taught the Zevrak that attacking a homeworld often created martyrs and strengthened resistance. Instead, they set course for Proxima Colony, the furthest human settlement from Earth. The strategy was time-tested. Isolate the outer settlements, demonstrate overwhelming force, and allow fear to spread inward toward the homeworld. The attack began without warning. Zevrak warships emerged from folded space directly in Proxima Centauri's orbit, their weapons already charged. The colony's defenses were minimal, its population primarily scientists and artists with a small security force. The first volley destroyed the colony's communication array, cutting it off from Earth. The second targeted its power generation facilities. By all Zevrak tactical assessments, the colony should have surrendered immediately after these precision strikes. Instead, something extraordinary happened. As the Zevrak ground forces prepared for the ritual occupation of the crippled colony, the humans counterattacked. Captain Maya Chen, commander of Proxima's modest security force, had recognized that conventional defense was impossible the moment the Zevrak fleet appeared. Instead of deploying her forces in a doomed defensive posture, she enacted a contingency plan that had been dismissed by many as paranoid when she first proposed it. Every building in the colony, every vehicle, even the environmental suits worn by colonists contained microfabricators, tiny manufacturing devices capable of reconfiguring local materials. These were primarily used for repairs and small-scale production, but Chen had secretly programmed them with military applications. As the Zevrak troops landed, expecting to find terrified, surrendering humans, they instead found an abandoned colony. And then the very infrastructure around them came alive. Building materials reformed into autonomous combat drones. Environmental systems that regulated temperature and atmosphere became weapons, targeting the Zevrak's unique biological vulnerabilities. The colony itself became a battlefield where the environment fought for the humans. Meanwhile, Chen had evacuated the colonists into the extensive cave systems beneath the settlement, where a backup communication system allowed her to send a compressed data package to Earth. Complete technical specifications of the Zevrak vessels and weapons gathered during their initial attack. The Zevrak ground forces, completely unprepared for this form of asymmetric warfare, suffered heavy casualties. When they retreated to their ships and attempted to simply bombard the colony from orbit, they discovered that the humans had another surprise waiting. The colony's art installation, a massive sculpture garden that the Zevrak had dismissed as culturally primitive decoration, revealed itself to be a disguised array of electromagnetic pulse generators. When activated, they sent targeted bursts that disrupted Zevrak targeting systems, rendering their orbital bombardment dangerously inaccurate. For 3 days, the battle for Proxima Colony continued, with the Zevrak unable to understand how a clearly inferior force could create such difficulties. They had overwhelming firepower, numerical superiority, and thousands of years of military experience, yet they couldn't secure a single human settlement. On the 4th day, reinforcements arrived, not for the humans, but for the Zevrak. The Council of Seven, disturbed by reports of the unexpected resistance, dispatched one of their ancient dreadnoughts, a planet-killer-class vessel that had not been needed for actual combat in over 2,000 years. The massive ship emerged from folded space like a dark star, its hull marked with the symbols of 17 conquered species. Its very presence was designed to induce despair, to communicate the utter futility of resistance. Captain Chen, monitoring from her underground command center, watched the behemoth arrive on their sensors. She allowed herself one moment of doubt, one sharp intake of breath. And then she smiled. "Right on schedule," she said to her officers. "Transmit the final signal to Earth. Tell them we have the package secured." As the Zivrak dreadnought moved into position to end the resistance once and for all, a small fleet of human vessels emerged from behind Proxima Centauri V's moon. They were not warships but modified mining vessels, their hulls reinforced with a material the Zivrak sensors couldn't properly analyze. The Zivrak commanders didn't bother with warnings. The dreadnought's main cannon powered up, prepared to reduce the approaching human ships to their constituent atoms. But before it could fire, the human vessels accelerated to speeds the Zivrak had thought impossible for such primitive technology. Each ship targeted a different Zivrak vessel, not firing weapons, but simply colliding with them at velocities that turned the mining ships into kinetic kill vehicles of unprecedented destructive power. The impacts were devastating. Zivrak shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and conventional explosives, proved inadequate against the sheer kinetic force. One by one, Zivrak warships were crippled or destroyed by what amounted to human-guided asteroids. The dreadnought, with its more robust defenses, survived the initial assault but found itself surrounded by the debris of its own support fleet. And then, as its commanders struggled to understand what had happened, they detected a new energy signature from the supposedly crippled colony below. Captain Chen had kept her true ace hidden until this moment. The colony's central plaza housed an experimental quantum entanglement device, originally designed for instantaneous communication across interstellar distances. Chen's team had repurposed it, turning it into a weapon that targeted the unique molecular structure of the metamaterials used in Zivrak ship construction. When activated, the device created a cascading quantum disruption that spread through the Zivrak dreadnought like a cancer, causing its advanced materials to break down at the subatomic level. The mighty vessel didn't explode. It simply began to disintegrate, coming apart piece by piece as its very matter lost cohesion. From her command center, Captain Chen watched the Zivrak flagship dissolve into an expanding cloud of microscopic particles. She turned to her communications officer. "Send word to Earth," she said quietly. "Tell them that the Zivrak now understand what it means to face humanity." The surviving Zivrak ships, witnessing the impossible destruction of their most powerful vessel, did something no Zivrak military force had done in recorded history. They retreated. The underestimated species. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Zivrak homeworld fell silent as High Commander Velkorax entered. The circular chamber, carved from a single massive crystal and illuminated by the light of 3 moons, normally buzzed with the harmonic discussions of the Empire's leadership. Today, it was tomb quiet. The loss at Proxima Colony marked the first military defeat in 17,000 years. Velkorax moved to the center of the chamber, his obsidian skin reflecting fractured moonlight as he bowed before the Council of 7. The eldest of them, Supreme Overlord Nexvalak, regarded him with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. "Explain," Nexvalak said, the single word reverberating through the crystal hall. "The humans," Velkorax began, then hesitated. How could he explain the inexplicable? They do not fight as others have fought us. They do not think as others have thought. Their technology is inconsistent, primitive in some aspects, inexplicably advanced in others. They appear disorganized, fragmented into countless independent factions, yet they coordinate with frightening efficiency when threatened. "Are you suggesting," another council member interjected, her voice sharp with disbelief, "that this infant species, which has barely left its home system, poses a genuine threat to the Zivrak dominion?" "I am stating," Velkorax replied carefully, "that they cannot be conquered through our standard protocols. Their resistance at Proxima Colony resulted in the loss of 37 warships and the Eternal Dreadnought. These are not the actions of a species that can be easily subjugated." Nexvalak's inner eyelids closed momentarily, a sign of deep contemplation. When they opened again, his decision was made. "Assemble the Grand Fleet," he commanded. "Not a demonstration force, not a diplomatic mission. The full might of the Zivrak dominion. We will not underestimate these humans again. Their homeworld must be neutralized, their colonies isolated and reduced. Only then will they understand their place in our universe. As the council session ended, Velcorax was approached by Zexteril, who had been observing from the periphery of the hall. "You didn't tell them everything," she said quietly. Velcorax glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. What purpose would it serve? The council has made its decision. They should know that before the battle ended, we detected unusual energy signatures from Earth. The humans were monitoring everything, gathering data on our weapons, our shields, our communications. They wanted us to deploy the dreadnought. Velcorax's outer membrane paled slightly. "You believe it was a trap, that they sacrificed their colony to study our capabilities. I believe," Zexteril said, "that we still don't understand what we're facing." On Earth, the mood was somber yet determined. The victory at Proxima Colony had come at a terrible cost. Over 800 colonists had perished, and the settlement itself was largely destroyed. But Captain Maya Chen had survived. And more importantly, the data package she had secured was proving invaluable. Destroyed. But Captain Maya Chen had survived. And more importantly, the data package she had secured was proving invaluable. In the underground facility beneath Lake Geneva, where the old particle accelerator had once made breakthroughs in fundamental physics, Dr. Amara Okafor now led a different kind of scientific revolution. Around her, a team of the planet's brightest minds worked feverishly, analyzing the Zevrak technology captured during the battle. "The quantum resonance patterns are like nothing we've ever seen," said Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, holographic displays flickering between his hands as he manipulated the data. "Their ships aren't just built, they're grown. The whole material responds to directed thought from the Zevrak pilots, which explains why Captain Chen's quantum disruptor was so effective." Okafor replied, her eyes never leaving her own displays. "It didn't just damage their ship, it broke the neural connection between ship and crew." "Can we replicate the technology?" asked General Ekaterina Volkov, who represented Earth's United Defense Council. "Replicate? No," Okafor shook her head. "Not in the time we have. But understand it. Create countermeasures. That's already happening." She gestured, and the holographic display expanded to show a three-dimensional model of Earth. Lines of force wrapped around the planet like a protective web. "Earth's electromagnetic field has always been one of our planet's unique features," she explained. "It's protected our atmosphere from solar radiation for billions of years. With the insights gained from the Zevrak technology, we can now modulate this field, turning our planet's natural protection into something far more powerful." "You're talking about weaponizing the Earth itself," General Volkov said, both awe and concern in her voice. "I'm talking about survival," Okafor corrected. "The Zevrak are coming back, and next time they won't send a fraction of their forces. They'll come with everything they have." In another section of the facility, Captain Chen was working with a different team, focusing on offensive capabilities rather than planetary defense. The mining ships that had been converted into kinetic weapons had proven effective, but they needed something more sustainable, something that could take the fight to the Zevrak if necessary. "The key is their folded space technology," Chen explained to her team. "It's similar to our Hawking drive in principle, but far more refined. They can create much smaller, more precise folds, which gives them better tactical mobility," added Commander Jamal Ibrahim, one of Earth's most decorated naval officers. "But it also creates a vulnerability. Each fold leaves a quantum wake, a disturbance in space-time that can be detected and potentially disrupted." Chen nodded. "Exactly. We're developing what we call space anchors, devices that can lock onto these quantum wakes and prevent the Zevrak ships from creating new folds. If we can deploy these throughout the system, we can restrict their movement, force them to fight on our terms." The preparations continued around the clock, humanity united in purpose as never before. Private corporations, government agencies, independent research groups all worked together, sharing discoveries and resources without the usual boundaries of profit, politics, or prestige. In orbit, Earth's modest defense fleet was reinforced with newly designed vessels that incorporated the lessons learned from Proxima Colony. These weren't the massive warships favored by the Zevrak, but smaller, more agile craft designed to work in concert, each specializing in different aspects of combat. And deeper in the solar system, beyond the orbit of Neptune, humanity prepared its first line of defense. Thousands of automated platforms were deployed, each containing a suite of sensors and a single powerful weapon, the quantum disruptors that had proven so effective against Zevrak materials. 3 months after the battle at Proxima Colony, the sensors placed at the edge of the solar system detected the folding of space on an unprecedented scale. The Zevrak were coming, and as predicted, they were coming in force. The grand fleet of the Zevrak Dominion emerged from folded space in perfect formation, over 500 warships arranged in concentric rings around the massive command vessel, the Eternal Dominion. It was the single largest military force ever assembled in the galaxy, representing the combined power of an empire that spanned 3 spiral arms. High Commander Velcorax stood on the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, surveying the holographic display of the Sol system. The humans had been busy in the months since Proxima Colony. Their orbital defenses had increased significantly, and there were unusual energy readings throughout the system that the Zevrak sensors couldn't quite identify. "They've been preparing," Zex Terrell observed, now serving as Velcorax's second-in-command. "As have we," Velcorax replied. "Begin the advance. Standard conquest formation. Target their outer defenses first, then move inward systematically. No demonstrations this time, no warnings, full deployment of all weapon systems." The Zevrak fleet moved forward with the precision of a single organism, each ship knowing its exact role in the coming conflict. As they crossed Neptune's orbit, they encountered the first layer of human defenses, the automated platforms with their quantum disruptors. The platforms activated simultaneously, each targeting a different Zevrak vessel. The effects were immediate and devastating. The specially designed weapons interfered with the neural connection between the Zevrak and their living ships, creating confusion and disarray in the previously perfect formation. "Evasive maneuvers," Velcorax commanded. "Deploy countermeasures and eliminate those platforms." The Zevrak fleet responded, breaking formation to target the human defenses. Their superior numbers began to tell, with dozens of platforms destroyed for each Zevrak ship disabled. It was a costly exchange for the humans, but it served its purpose. The perfect cohesion of the Zevrak attack was disrupted. As the vanguard of the Zevrak fleet pushed past the automated defenses, they encountered the next layer of human resistance, the space anchors. These devices, deployed in a complex 3-dimensional grid throughout the solar system, activated as the Zevrak ships passed through their network. The effect was immediate. The quantum fields that allowed the Zevrak vessels to create folded space suddenly destabilized. Ships that attempted to make tactical jumps found themselves either unable to enter folded space or, worse, emerging in unexpected locations, sometimes dangerously close to other vessels. "They've turned the entire system into a trap," Zex Terrell realized with growing alarm. "They're negating our technological advantages one by one." Velcorax's outer membrane darkened with anger. "It changes nothing. We still outnumber them 100 to 1. Continue the advance. Conventional drives only. Maintain formation as best possible." The Zevrak fleet pressed onward, suffering losses, but still overwhelming in their numbers and firepower. As they approached Earth's orbit, they were met by the human defense fleet, a fraction of their size, but fighting with unexpected tactics and technology. The human vessels didn't attempt to match the Zevrak in direct firepower. Instead, they used the space anchors to control the battlefield, creating zones where Zevrak ships couldn't maneuver effectively, then concentrating their attacks on isolated targets. It was like watching a pack of small predators bring down a much larger beast, piece by piece, wound by wound. But the Zevrak had not ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years without learning to adapt. Velcorax ordered a change in tactics, abandoning the traditional crescent formation for a simple mass advance. The Zevrak would absorb the losses and overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers. The strategy was brutal but effective. Despite their ingenious defenses and tactics, the humans couldn't stop the full might of the Zevrak dominion. One by one, the human defense platforms were destroyed. Their fleet, though fighting valiantly, was being pushed back toward Earth. On the planet below, Dr. Okafor watched the battle unfold with grim determination. The defense was going exactly as planned, not to defeat the Zevrak outright, which was impossible given the disparity in forces, but to channel them, to position them precisely where humanity wanted them. "They're entering optimal range," reported one of her technicians. 80% of their fleet is now within the primary engagement zone. Okafor took a deep breath, then nodded to General Volkov. "Activate the planetary defense system." Across Earth, massive installations that had been built in secret over the past months powered up simultaneously. These weren't conventional weapons, but enormous electromagnetic field generators, designed to work in concert with the planet's natural magnetic field. In space, the Zevrak fleet continued its inexorable advance, now close enough to Earth to begin the final phase of their attack. Velcorax prepared to give the order that would reduce humanity's homeworld to a barren rock. Then, without warning, every system on every Zevrak ship began to fail simultaneously. The carefully modulated electromagnetic pulse radiated outward from Earth like an invisible tsunami. Unlike conventional EMPs, this one was precisely tuned to the unique properties of Zevrak technology, targeting the neural interfaces that connected the living ships to their crews. Across the Zevrak fleet, ships suddenly lost power, weapon systems failed, and navigation became impossible. The mighty vessels, each one a marvel of biological engineering and quantum technology, were rendered impotent in an instant. Across Earth, massive installations that had been built in secret over the past months powered up simultaneously. These weren't conventional weapons, but enormous electromagnetic field generators, designed to work in concert with the planet's natural magnetic field. In space, the Zevrak fleet continued its inexorable advance, now close enough to Earth to begin the final phase of their attack. Velcorax prepared to give the order that would reduce humanity's homeworld to a barren rock. Then, without warning, every system on every Zevrak ship began to fail simultaneously. The carefully modulated electromagnetic pulse radiated outward from Earth like an invisible tsunami. Unlike conventional EMPs, this one was precisely tuned to the unique properties of Zevrak technology, targeting the neural interfaces that connected the living ships to their crews. Across the Zevrak fleet, ships suddenly lost power, weapon systems failed, and navigation became impossible. The mighty vessels, each one a marvel of biological engineering and quantum technology, were rendered impotent in an instant. On the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, Velcorax watched in horror as the holographic displays flickered and died, plunging the bridge into darkness. Emergency systems activated, providing minimal life support, but the great warship, like all others in the fleet, was now little more than a drifting hulk. "What have they done?" he whispered, genuine fear in his voice for the first time in his long life. Before anyone could answer, the communication system crackled with an incoming transmission, one of the few systems still functioning, though barely. The holographic projector sputtered to life, displaying the image of a human woman. Velcorax recognized her as Dr. Amara Okafor, the scientist whose work had first brought humanity to the Zevrak's attention. "High Commander," she said, her voice clear despite the degraded transmission. "Your fleet is disabled. Your weapons are offline. You are at our mercy." Velcorax straightened his posture, determined to maintain dignity even in defeat. "Then finish it. Destroy us and claim your victory." "That's not how humanity operates," Okafor replied calmly. "We don't seek your destruction. We never did. All we wanted was to be left in peace, to determine our own path in this galaxy." You speak of peace after crippling the greatest fleet ever assembled. Velcorax's voice was bitter. We speak of peace precisely because we could have destroyed you and chose not to, Okafor countered. The effect of our planetary defense system is temporary. In approximately 12 hours, your ships will regain full functionality. By then, you must be beyond the outer boundary of our system. This is not negotiable. And if we refuse? Okafor's expression remained calm, but her eyes hardened. Then we activate the secondary phase of our defense system, which will permanently disable the neural connections in your ship's material. They will cease to be living vessels and become simply metal and carbon, adrift in space. Your choice. The transmission ended, leaving Velcorax and the Zevrak command staff in stunned silence. Never in the long history of their species had they faced such a defeat, comprehensive yet bloodless, demonstrating power while offering mercy. After a moment of consideration, Velcorax gave the order. Using what little power remained, the Zevrak fleet began to limp away from Earth, thousands of once mighty warships now retreating before an enemy they had grievously underestimated. On Earth, celebrations erupted across the planet as news of the victory spread. Humanity had faced the greatest power in the galaxy and emerged not just intact but triumphant. Yet amid the jubilation, the architects of the defense maintained their focus. This isn't the end, Captain Chen cautioned during the victory briefing. The Zevrak won't forget this defeat. They may not return next year or even next decade, but eventually they'll try again. And we'll be ready, Dr. Okafor replied confidently. But more importantly, the galaxy will know what happened here. Other species will learn that the Zevrak can be defeated, that their dominion isn't absolute. You're talking about changing the balance of power throughout the galaxy, General Volkov said. I'm talking about creating a new balance, one where humanity has a voice, where no single species dictates the fate of all others. Okafor's gaze was fixed on the holographic display showing the retreating Zevrak fleet. Today was our introduction to the galactic community. Tomorrow, we begin reshaping it. In the months that followed, humanity's expansion accelerated. The technology captured from the Zevrak fleet provided insights that advanced human science by decades in a matter of months. New colonies were established, not just in nearby star systems, but reaching farther into the galaxy.